Hi everybody, I'm here today to review a plot diagram with you. So just a reminder, a plot diagram is kind of like a map of a narrative fiction text. So fiction means it's a story that is not true, and it's usually told in narrative form, which means that it's told like a story with a beginning and a middle and an end, and characters and setting and problem and solution. And so we can usually map it out with these 6 parts of a plot diagram, okay? So first, authors usually start with the exposition, and the exposition has a flat line on purpose because there isn't any action happening. So the story is just kind of flat. This is where the author introduces the characters and the setting so that we know who is in the story before the action really gets started. So sometimes there's a little bit of an exception. Sometimes the author wants something kind of shocking or surprising or interesting to happen right at the beginning before the exposition. This is just to get your attention and get you interested in reading the text so that you'll keep going. But usually the beginning of the book is just to introduce you to the characters in the setting. You might even find that part of the story a little bit boring because there isn't any action happening. And this is usually the part of the story where kids will abandon their book. But I'd usually encourage you to just keep going because the action's going to get started really soon. And then if you want to abandon the book, you can if you want to, unless it's required for class, of course. So we're all very familiar with the rising action. I know that you guys know all about that. But an important point happens first, this point right here. The action doesn't just start happening by itself for no reason. Something has to happen to get that action started, and so we call that the inciting incident. The inciting incident is when one particular incident happens, and it's usually the little tiny start of the problem. And wherever the problem kind of starts is going to be that part. So that could be a longer part of the text, and it could be very obvious and easy to find, or it could be kind of hidden where when you're reading you think it's not that big of a deal, but it's actually the beginning of a problem that grows from there. Okay, so then we have the rising action, and this is usually when the problem starts getting more and more and more intense. So the rising action is usually the problem getting worse and worse or more and more complicated. And then you're also familiar with the falling action. But once again, the action doesn't just start rising by itself and then falling by itself. If there's going to be a change, then something needs to happen to cause the change, and that is the climax. So the climax is going to usually be the most exciting part of the story, but it's also the part of the story where the main character probably does something to try and start to solve the problem. This is usually when they have their big aha moments, or something big has to happen in order for the story to change course. So this is going to be the problem getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and maybe something heroic happens or something big happens to cause a change where the problem stops getting worse and worse and starts getting better and better. Okay, so usually that point in between is going to be the climax. So as the problem starts to get better, the action falls and we kind of start to breathe a sigh of relief and we don't feel so tense anymore. And then we have the resolution at the end where the problem is usually solved. So make sure that you guys look for these 6 parts whenever you're reading any kind of narrative text, because it's kind of like a map so that you know where you're going. You need to make sure that when you're reading, you know what to expect and what to look for, and that will increase your reading comprehension. So you're not really looking for main ideas and supporting details. You're not looking for a bunch of facts because that would be nonfiction text. So it's really important for you to know, is the text I'm about to read fiction or nonfiction, so that you know what to look for and what to expect. And so when you're reading a narrative text, these are the things that you should look for and expect. And if you can find these things, they will help you with other things that are more difficult, like characterization or problem and solution or theme and other things like that. So that is why it is important to kind of understand the structure of narrative text, which is how the author organizes it, because it's kind of like a roadmap that shows you where you're going and keeps you on track to do harder things. Thanks for listening.